It's time for the Lovable Me Show. Based on the award-winning book series, I Am a Lovable Me. Get ready to have some fun learning with Lovable, our resident enlightening bug. Are you ready? Close your eyes and let's count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Now open them. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Lovable Me Show. My name is Sharon Penchina. I'm author of the award-winning I Am a Lovable Me books for children. Thank you so much for joining our show today. Let's begin by watching our weekly video vlog message. And today's vlog teaches us how to measure children's self-esteem. After the short video plays, don't go away because I have a very special guest today and she's going to give us a glimpse behind the curtain as a former elementary school teacher. And you won't want to miss that.
Welcome to the Lovable Me weekly vlog where you will find valuable tools and enlightenment to support your child's self-confidence and self-esteem. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Mahatma Gandhi. How do you measure children's self-esteem? Most children develop a measurable sense of self-esteem before kindergarten and by the age of 5. Starting at infancy, children develop social relationships and a sense of belonging. These feelings help them develop an attachment to their parents, laying the foundation for social emotional development and paving the way for the development of positive self-esteem. According to a new study by the University of Washington, more than 90% of 5-year-old preschoolers describe themselves using the word good, as in, I am good at. Self-esteem often remains unaltered across one's lifespan, so the earlier you promote your child's positive attributes, the healthier their self-image and concept of self. A healthy self-esteem affords children an emotional cushion to disappointments and enables them to develop resilience towards failures. This resiliency is especially important to early learning and education. Giving your child a great start in life and teaching them daily affirmations to help develop a healthy internal dialogue may be one of the most precious gifts you can give them. Children who feel loved will embody that love and love themselves. And don't forget to check out our Lovable Me books in Apple iBooks, Amazon Kindle books, and Google Play books.
Today, we're all in for a treat. My guest is Susan Quam-Weinstein. She's a former elementary school teacher with 17 years of experience. Susan was awarded Teacher of the Year for excellence in the classroom and led countless initiatives in an effort to help every child in her school district. She's the founder of Beyond Paper and Pencil Media, a communications company that leads media and that creates media and apps to help school districts, wellness professionals, authors, and many other companies to better convey their message to their target market. She's a valuable contributor to the Lovable Me Show and creates our fantastic video vlog messages each week. Susan, I want to welcome you. It's so nice to have you here. It's great to have you aboard the Lovable Me Show. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Sharon. It's so wonderful being here. You know, I'm one of your biggest fans, and so thank you for having me as a guest.
Well, it's really exciting. I know we have a lot to cover today. I have so many questions to ask you. So I'm going to just jump right in. And, you know, I know that you've spent a lot of time teaching and observing children in the classroom. And I'm really excited to hear your take on what that was like to teach these young kiddos. But before we do that, I wanted you to share and share your expertise and insight along the way. I wondered if you wouldn't mind telling us what caused you to step away from teaching in the classroom.
Well, good question, Sharon. Thank you. I retired about 2 years ago with the realization that the old teaching model is no longer working for a changing population of children. So, with 17 years of teaching experience, matched only by my love for children and love for research, I wanted to create a new model. And I started a communication company that creates media in the form of video blogs, or as we call them, vlogs, that inform, engage, and educate parents, caregivers, families, teachers, students, and school leaders about child, family, and school concerns and issues. And because of how effective these videos were, I started taking on clients from the wellness profession, authors much like yourself, and other businesses. And that's how the whole Beyond Paper and Pencil Media kind of came to be.
So what was that the impetus to shift out of the classroom and focus your attention more on doing that type of work to help kids and others as well?
Yes, I noticed that just even in the 17 years that I taught, my population of students, their needs were changing at a rapid clip. So I just felt that I needed to find a way to really help these children. And like I said, to create a new model. And so, yes, since the day I stepped out of the classroom, I stepped into this new role of really trying to find that new model and create that new model.
Well, obviously we have something in common because, you're using a lot of visual imagery, in the learning process. And as do I with the books that I've written. I wondered if you could tell us, what role that plays, what role visual imagery plays in the learning process as far as, what you've experienced.
Well, absolutely, Sharon. My love for brain and brain research, the visuals was a no-brainer, no puns intended. Visuals the brain processes visuals so much faster than it does text-only material. And visuals add so much to learning on multiple levels. Hence, 65% of our population are visual learners. Visual information, the brain, most of the information taken into the brain, 90% of it is visual information. And as opposed to text-only material, our brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster. So our brain can actually see an image that lasts only 13 milliseconds. And our eyes can take in 36,000 images within an hour. And lastly, visual images are one of the simplest and most effective ways to store information learned in long-term memory, because visuals are processed in long-term memory. So they're indelibly etched. And my first education to how important and impactful visuals were to learning was as a teacher. My background is early childhood. I taught children from the ages of 4 to 7. And during those years of those ages, we teach reading. These children are learning reading. Now, just imagine how complex a skill that is. Learning the 26 symbols, there's symbols, and then the sounds that go along with each symbol, and then putting those sounds together to make words and decoding to read, not to mention mathematics. So every time I would teach a complex skill, I would follow it up, enhance it with a short little engaging video. And it was magical how these children were able to retain this information, to hold on to it, and to be able to use it. So visuals are extremely important.
Interesting. And would that be true for those, we know that there are different modes of learning that are best, suited for each individual. Some are more visual, some are more auditory, or kinesthetic, etc. But do you find that the visual imagery is sort of a universal thing, that it's whether your visual your visual mode of learning is dominant or not, that it's still as effective?
Well, we're not just visual learners or auditory learners. We use all of those forms of learning, but 65% of our population
Mm-hmm.
are visual learners. I mean, that's the majority.
Right.
So I think visuals help everyone.
Right. That's great. Well, I agree with you on that. So thank you for sharing that. You mentioned that the student population is changing in the 17 years that you've taught. I wonder if you could shed some light on the challenges in today's classrooms.
Absolutely. Well, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, 1 in 5 children grades K through 12 will suffer from or be diagnosed with a mental health or learning disorder. So out of the 55 million children enrolled in grades K through 12, approximately 17 million of those children will suffer from a mental health or learning disorder. What that looks like is ADD, attention deficit with hyperactivity, ADHD, autism, Tourette's, Asperger's, that whole spectrum, as well as depression and anxiety. So with the average class size being 25 students, that means 5 of those students, a minimum of 5 of those students, will suffer from a mental health or learning disorder. Now, a mental health or learning disorder is described in children as serious changes in the way children learn, in how they behave, and how they handle their emotions. So just imagine a minimum of 5 children in each classroom having problems learning, behaving, and handling their emotions. That's a huge challenge.
Wow, that's I know it's probably for another show for us to get together and do what's behind all of that, and statistically, where do we stand in terms of that issue escalating and the numbers growing. I wonder if you could share with us how those challenges impact the behavioral issues in the classroom.
Very good question. And there's a huge impact. Like I mentioned earlier, 1 in 5 children will be diagnosed with a mental health or learning disorder by the time they turn 18, before they turn 18, which affects their learning, behavior, and how they handle their emotions. Well, according to a report by Scholastic, which was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, teachers polled from around the country. We're talking elementary teachers, middle school teachers, high school teachers, and the whole topic was on behavioral challenges in the classroom. 70% of those teachers polled said that yes, that they noticed an increase in behavioral problems in their classrooms. Close to 70% of elementary school teachers, 60% of middle school teachers, over 55% of high school teachers. Now, behavior affects every child in the classroom. And on multiple levels, but one of the ways that it affects all the children is time spent handling the behavior that's taken away from those precious hours of instruction. Mm-hmm. Why children are in school, the learning process. Statistically, over 4 hours a week is spent, taken away from instruction, spent on handling discipline and behaviors in the classroom. When we roll that out to a year, that's 180 hours out of the school year. And when we put that into days, Sharon, public school, it's 180 days out of the calendar year that children attend school. That's in public school. I'm not quite sure about private, but it's close to that. over 27 school days are lost of learning to handling behavior. Now, research shows that studies have showed that children who suffer from mental health disorders and learning disorders are at a risk of poor outcomes in school and in life, and outdated approaches to discipline are only making matters worse. So the way parents are handling these behaviors at home, teachers are handling these behaviors in the classroom, these outdated approaches are exacerbating the problem. What does that look like? Okay, let's look at the 3 typical ways that maybe parents, teachers, caregivers handle behavior problems. 1, yelling, raising your voice and yelling. Guilty as charged. I think we've all done that. Now, I don't know about you, but that really stresses me out and makes me anxious. Now, just think of a child with a mental health disorder who has problems handling their emotions. And studies show that yelling makes these children with mental health and learning disorders aggressive. Mm-hmm. Is that what we want? No. The other mode of discipline is isolation, both verbally and physically. Verbal isolation might be calling a child out, like, Sharon, your behavior is keeping us from learning. So either Sharon stays in for recess or the whole class stays in for recess until we can get this done. Now, this increases stress and anxiety in the child, as well as aggression. Plus that, what is it doing for peers, for peer groups? Everyone is everyone going to be Sharon's friend? No, she's keeping us in for recess. As far as physical isolation, maybe moving Sharon to the corner of the room away from her friends. Mm-hmm. That's creating anxiety, stress, and aggression. The last one is
negative. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Susan, but that's one of those things that could really have a lifelong lasting effect on that child in particular.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I appreciate that, but you're absolutely right. And especially with a child who already has problems handling their emotions. Mm-hmm. Okay. The last way is negative facial and body emotions. Now, I'm very expressive. So no matter how I feel, you can read me like a book. Now, studies have shown that our brain keys into fearful and angry faces and body postures before happy cues. Okay? So, and it creates anxiety and fear in the participant. So we're already dealing with children who have problems handling their emotions. So let's talk about emotions now. The area of the brain that handles the emotions, the emotion center, is the amygdala, which is in the limbic system. And it's that fight or flight survival. Now, it handles all emotions, happy, sad, whatever, but its number one focus that it keys into is fear, because it is in charge of survival, fight or flight. Now, when that area is bombarded with constant stress. Now, keep in mind, children with mental health and learning disorders have problems handling their emotions. Constant stress. It's telling the brain, this environment isn't safe. Mm-hmm. So everything else shuts down, and now the whole focus is survival. I'm going to kill the tiger, or the tiger is going to kill me. No one's worried about multiplication tables, okay? We're worried about how we are going to survive. So all of these forms of behavior, how we're handling behaviors, is either making children aggressive, they act out, or they just shut down. No learning's going on.
Right. And literally no means of any kind of rational thinking, because thinking isn't really, discerning, another way of approaching things is not even available when we're in that fight or flight scenario. So that's really something very important for us to all consider and think about. And, you mentioned that the old teaching model is no longer working, and that you were working on creating a new model. So I wondered if you could explain that to us, and hopefully there's, information there that we can all glean from, that gives us a little bit of hope that we can get this rectified or addressed in a much better way.
Well, the old model, I think the best way to really sum up the old model is through a quote by an astrophysicist, author, science communicator by the name of Neil deGrasse Tyson. And his quote goes something like this: "We spend the first year of a child's life teaching it to walk and talk, and the rest of its life to shut up and sit down." Wow. Does that explain the typical classroom? Now, being an early childhood teacher, I taught early K, kindergarten, and first grade. Now, in early kindergarten, children it's more free play, expressing yourselves, up, dancing around, role playing, singing, you name it. But once the children get into first grade and on, they have assigned desks, assigned seating. They have to sit and attend, pay attention. Now, that model isn't working very well for our children today. So when I was thinking of a new model, I had to find an area of the brain. What area of the brain could deactivate, kind of keep those emotions at bay, and at the same time fire and hit all those wonderful areas of the brain for learning. Now, learning is a function of multiple parts of the brain working together. Okay, we have to keep that in mind. But the area of the brain that really kept on popping up in every study that I looked at is called the cerebellum. The cerebellum is small. It's like 1/10 of the total brain size, and it sits right back kind of where the brain, spinal cord and brain meet. The beauty of the cerebellum is over half of the brain's neurons run through the cerebellum. Those are information highways. They run to every area of the brain where language, learning, attention, motivation, memory, decision-making, emotions take place. So how do we activate the cerebellum? The greatest amount of feedback to the cerebellum is through the muscle spindle and the Golgi tendon. The Golgi tendon holds the muscle to the bone. So every time we extend and flex our muscles, that means any and all muscles, any or all movement, we're firing the Golgi tendon, which fires the cerebellum, which activates all those areas of the brain where learning takes place. Now, this is the other interesting thing about the cerebellum. Studies have shown that the cerebellum is most active during learning. And almost totally inactive during mindless activities like watching TV. So, but what better way to really get that double dose than during a learning situation in the classroom and integrating some movement? So I created a brain-based movement app. Brain-based sounds pretty serious, right? But it's a movement app where we do little breaks throughout. I propose doing breaks throughout the school, throughout the day of learning. So after 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes worth of learning, no more than a 30-second movement break. Standing up next to the desk. It can be structured. It doesn't have to be a free-for-all. Moving both sides of the body, activating both hemispheres of the brain to make for happy, on task, and learning children.
That's terrific. I mean, I think it serves a great purpose. It seems like on so many levels. I know just when you're trying to recall someone's name or a phone number or whatever it is, and we effort to have that information pop up for us, the information that we have stored in our subconscious minds, and we just can't retrieve it. Sometimes just stepping away from it, stepping back, taking a couple of breaths, shaking it off, not efforting at all allows that information to come forward. So to me, being for kids to just have that release, in addition to everything that you're saying, seems like, a perfect way to go. And it's something that the kids would probably look forward to as well. It would be fun. and just change the whole environment in a very positive way. So that's terrific. And maybe you'll be able to come back and kind of give us a little bit of a demonstration on that, so we can learn more about exactly what it looks like and what you're doing, to really better the lives of children and help teachers and parents so that they can help educate their children, much more effectively. So that's terrific. I don't know if there's anything else that, you might want to add, but I wanted to mention to you that I was listening to a lecture the other day from another fine educator, and he used the phrase, guide from the sidelines rather than be a sage from the stage. I don't know if that's something that you've heard in your travels before, but listening to that lecture and what you're telling us today, there is a need to change. We do need to create new models and shift away from old paradigms. Change is good, and their neuroscience is all helping to substantiate and support this work. So I think it's terrific, what you're doing. But I wanted you to have another minute or two to come back on and share anything else you might want to with us before we leave. So if there's anything that you want to say, Susan, please go right ahead.
Oh, well, thank you, Sharon. I think what I'd like to leave, the message I'd like to leave with is that, and excuse my dog, the pitter patter of his little dog, his little puppy feet, about now is probably the most important time to, it's critical with their changing population of children, 1 in 5 children, like I mentioned, with mental health or learning disorders, to really practice and teach our children self-help and self-care, starting at a very young age. And this is for parents, caregivers, and teachers, because children are now in school at very young ages. Mm-hmm. And scientific evidence proves that self-talk and affirmations, breathing techniques and movement just being so important for the overall well-being, emotional well-being of all children, not to mention these children who already have problems handling their emotions. I mean, there's science-based evidence that show affirmations actually change the brain on a chemical level. So what we think really matters. So happy thoughts are going to create happy chemicals and make us happy. The American Psychological Association just did a study. Once again, 1 in 5. Wow, that number keeps on coming up. 1 in 5 children that they studied claimed to worry a lot or a great deal. That breaks my heart that young children are worrying. Mm-hmm. And science shows that controlled breathing or conscious breathing helps to address stress, keep it at bay. It promotes relaxation. And like I said, my favorite part of the brain, the cerebellum, when we move and stretch, we're activating the cerebellum, which half of the neurons run through, and we're keeping those emotions at bay, as well as affecting all the centers of the brain. So we really need to start working with our children and being a lot more diligent about self-help and self-care, and really look at our own behavior and how we are impacting our children.
Yeah, and those are some great, easy tips for parents and caregivers to start right away. It doesn't cost anything. It's, something we can play with and have fun with, and they can implement right away. So, Susan, thank you so much for coming by. I hope that you'll join us again real soon, and we can continue the conversation.
I most definitely will. Thank you so much for inviting me. And like I said, I'm a big fan of yours, a big fan of the Lovable series. I did read the Lovable series to my students, and they loved the little enlightening bug and all the characters and all the visuals. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you too. You have a great day. And remember, the Lovable Me books are great support tools to help self-empower your children. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and like our page. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're watching on Periscope, please follow us. You'll find today's video on self-esteem and all the information Susan had to share with us today posted on our Facebook page for you to read and share. And don't forget to make sure you check out all the Lovable Me books by clicking on the Learn More button at the very end of this video. If you have a Facebook business page and would like to broadcast your show live, this show live on your page, text the word lovable to 480-360-3358 and we'll contact you. I'm your host, Sharon Penchina, and I'll be back next week when you'll discover the 3 most important things that you really need to know about affirmations. Thank you and have a beautiful day.
Thank you for watching the Lovable Me Show. Also, if you have any questions for Lovable, go ahead and ask away. Don't forget to visit us next week, right here in the Facebook bugler.